A possible meeting between the Ukrainian president and the Russian dictator in the near future. This is not the only topic we'll discuss with our studio guest, Valentyn Hladkykh, an expert from the analytical center United Ukraine. Welcome. Glad to see you.
Good evening. Thanks for the invitation.
Mr. Valentyn, in response, said that a meeting is possible in the near future, even at the level of the leaders. He also mentioned Trump, saying that perhaps it will take place in a trilateral format, but Trump has not yet decided. In your opinion, how likely is it? What are the chances that this meeting could actually take place in the near future?
Very few. And the chances that this meeting will be productive are even lower. And the reason is very simple. Think back to the summer of last year, when President Zelensky traveled to Turkey and invited Putin to join him there, expecting a serious meeting. However, instead of showing up, the Russians simply sent a mock delegation instead. Later on, shortly after that important meeting in Washington, when, if you remember, the European leaders together with President Zelensky visited the United States and thoroughly discussed their strategic positions following the high-stakes Trump-Putin meeting. The situation was quite tense, and at that time, Zelensky also said that he was ready to meet with Putin both in a bilateral format and in a trilateral format. And then Trump. Do you remember, Nadia, I was fueling this hysteria about a possible meeting somewhere in Budapest, even though it was clear to everyone at the time that nothing was going to happen. And let's recall the position of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which of course said, we cannot rule out a meeting at the highest level. It is certainly very necessary, but for it to be effective, it needs to be very well prepared. Therefore, first we need to prepare everything thoroughly. Well, they are still diligently preparing it with great care, actually. And now I'm absolutely certain that the rhetoric from the Russians will be precisely the same as before. The only thing that might potentially force the Russians into such a high-level meeting is simply their strategic desire to flatter Trump a little bit, effectively allowing Trump once again to boast loudly about his personal peacemaking efforts, to add another line to his resume. I don't know, it seems to me that in hell no one cares about resumes. Or does he think that St. Peter is there? That he'll be reading his resume, reviewing it before sending him off? So honestly, I find all of this very amusing. All these show-offs with their statements. There are no grounds whatsoever. Moreover, the Russians are constantly putting forward preconditions for such meetings. This shows that basically they don't want this meeting. And the answer to the question of why they don't want it, I think, is also obvious. Because they don't want to stop this war. But they are afraid of the consequences for themselves from the Trump administration. They don't want to irritate him unnecessarily, so to speak. They don't want to. Giving Trump's critics yet another opportunity, giving them, to put it in Ukrainian, a chance to throw his incompetence and ineptitude, his policy towards Russia, in his face. That's why, from time to time, they indulge him from behind the scenes. So, if anyone is interested in these mechanical steps, yes, mechanical steps can take place. It's not worth expecting any results from them. And, by and large, as I said earlier, it's unlikely that even this meeting will take place.
As for the negotiations between the trilateral delegations, they are supposed to take place around mid-March, another round. Do you have any hopes for this next round of negotiations? Because Hladkykh also says that he has proposed certain conditions to both the Ukrainian and Russian sides, which over the next 2 to 3 weeks they are supposed to agree upon and then relay their responses to the US through their own channels.
There will be further meetings in the trilateral format, which will be an imitation of the negotiation process on Russia's part. As long as Russia has the ability to continue the war, Russia will continue the war. As of today, all these negotiations, when it comes to Russia, there are two main motives. Motive number one, they attempt to achieve by diplomatic means what could not be achieved by military means. In other words, they use negotiations as a tool to secure their national interests, to impose their will on other actors through negotiations. That is, this is their program, maximum, the minimum program. They employ diplomatic negotiations to stall any potential punitive actions against themselves from the Trump administration. And accordingly, they do this to influence those other countries that follow the Trump administration's position. In other words, by acting in this way, they manage to buy themselves some additional time. Are you talking about sanctions? About aid to Ukraine. Because we forget that there are two components here. On the one hand, there is the need to strengthen Ukraine so that Ukraine has more tools at its disposal, so that Ukraine can counter Russian aggression or deliver painful blows to Russia that will make it more difficult for Russia to wage this war. And of course, the strengthening sanctions pressure on Russia, which will significantly undermine Russia's ability to rebuild its military potential. As of today, we see this from the side of the United States. The tools being used are extraordinarily limited and restricted and very measured, especially considering the vast array of tools in the available toolkit. That is, if we compare what they could do with what they are actually doing, it looks like nothing short of blatant, cynical mockery and covert indulgence of Russia.